Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified. I'm Jatin Bhardwaj and I'm going to take the DNS session for today. DNS is an initiative of Raus IAS where we take up important articles from the Hindu newspaper and Indian Express and curate them with the demand of the UPSC examination. We divide the articles from the perspective of prelim examination and the mains examination. So as you can see on the screen, we have taken important articles dated 21st of October 2023. From the prelims perspective, we have taken 5 important articles. The first one is the graphite production in India and across the world. The second is the fast radio burst, followed by PESO or the Petroleum Explosive Safety Organization. The fourth one is the ethics committee, which is in news for various reasons now. And the last one is Dhordo, which is a village. On the main side, we have taken articles. The first one is the critical analysis of the manual scavenging. Now, this article is going to be the lead article for today. In this article, we have taken important analysis from the perspective of UPSC. We are going to discuss about the basics of manual scavenging, what it is, where it is being practiced, how long it has been practiced. We will look into the political, social, economic, ethical concerns of manual scavenging, and in the last, we will look into some of the way forward. As a bonus point, we will also include a mains related question with a sample answer also. Followed by this article, the last and the mains related article is going to be with respect to the possibilities of the private finances in the climate change. So far, we have been knowing about the public sector finances in the climate field. But now onwards, we are going to look into the possibilities of private finance in the same field. So without wasting any time, let us begin with the first article, which is prelims based. Now the article published on the business page of the Hindu newspaper and talks about the moves taken by China to curb the graphite exports to cite the national security. Now, why China is citing the national security? And what is graphite? Graphite is nothing but a crystalline carbon. It is soft, lustrous, maybe black to gray in color, and it conducts electricity. Now, because of that particular reason, it is used for electric vehicles, batteries, anode. Now, as China is the largest exporter and the producer of graphite in the world, it wants to take this as a matter of national security. Now, from the basis of that, UPSC has already asked multiple times questions from the perspective of natural resources in India and across the world. For instance, in 2022, they have asked a question from a natural resources known as monazite. The question was that monazite is a source of rare earth material, contains thorium, naturally occurs in the entire Indian coastal area, and in India, government bodies only can produce and process such minerals. Now, the answer to this question was 1, 2, and 4 only. Why? Because it is no doubt available in India in coastal areas, but not the entire coast. So the answer was obviously option B. Now, from that perspective, we have taken a question for today on the basis of graphite and its global distribution. The first statement says that India is one of the top 5 producer of graphite in the world. Is this correct? Absolutely. So the first statement is correct. India is among the top, but China is the top producer and the exporter. But China does not have the largest reserve. The largest reserve lies with Turkey, which is almost like 27% of the global reserves. The second statement is the majority of India's graphite production, the word is production, comes from the state of Arunachal Pradesh. This statement is wrong. As far as reserves are concerned, so yes, it is Arunachal Pradesh. But as far as production are concerned, it is Jharkhand and Tamil Nadu and not Arunachal Pradesh. So from that perspective, the second statement is wrong. Now, if you go by the elimination method, which is really now being used in UPSC, but still, if you go by that, if you eliminate the second one, you can jump to the conclusion that either A or C's option is correct. But let's read the all option. The graphite is primarily used for the production of steel and lubricants. Yes, it is absolutely correct. Basic sciences. So the statement third is also correct. Coming to the fourth one, the flake graphite. Now, flake graphite is available in the metamorphic rocks. It is the most abundant graphite in the world and it is most shiny and lustrous. So, flake graphite is the most abundant form of natural graphite found in India. This statement is also correct. So, from that perspective, the answer to this question is going to be option C. Let's look into the first one, which is the astronomer detects 8 billion year old fast radio burst and what that is. This article was published in the Indian Express in explained section. From the perspective of UPSC's prelim examination, even this year, astronomical events are extremely important. And this astronomical event that took place almost like 8 billion years ago was recently been discovered by the astronomers. Now, UPSC does not go deeper into the astronomical events. So they just ask the peripheral related questions. In 2023, PYQ, if you go by, they have asked a concept related match the following, in which the first two were wrong. And the answer was option A, that is only one. Pulsars are the neutron stars that are formed when the massive stars run out of fuel and collapse. This is true. And the same neutron star or the same star can even be divided into two: pulsars and magnetars, on which we have framed a question. The question says, that is the practice question says, the first option, fast radio burst, which was actually mentioned in the news, are the dense remnants of the supermassive star that have exploded as supernovae. This statement is incorrect. They are not the remnants. Actually, it's the remission. It's the outcome, the burst of the energy. Radio waves are released. And they are released in such a number and at such a fast speed that they can be released within milliseconds and can be as equivalent as 500 million stars. That's the reason why it is not a remnant, but the energy released. The second one is magnetars, which is one of the neutron star, are the most powerful known magnetic objects in the world. Neutron stars themselves are very powerful. And if they have the large or the extensive magnetic field, which are magnetars, so the statement number 2 is correct. Now, this is what was discovered recently. From that perspective, the answer to this question is going to be option B. Now, let's jump to the next one, which is sparks of danger. If you know Diwali, you know crackers. On the cracker packet, you will often read about a city known as Shivakasi. This city has the most number of cracker manufacturers in the country, which are decentralized, mostly unorganized. And that is the reason why you will often hear about the fire incidences taking place in these areas, in these factories. One such fire recently took place. And that is the reason why this became an important topic for the occupational safety, explosive safety, and the use of petroleum products in the country. But from that perspective, we have taken an important organization which was mentioned in the article, which is known as PESO. And on the same, we have created a MCQ. With reference to the Petroleum Explosive Safety Organization known as PESO, consider the following statements. There are three. The first one is, it is a post-independence body to regulate the explosives, compressed gases, and petroleum. The second half of the statement is absolutely true. But surprisingly, it is not the post-independence. It is a pre-independence organization. It was created around 1898 by the British organizations, British authorities, to provide safety to the weapons and explosives. So this statement is absolutely incorrect. The second is, it works under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, which seems to be the obvious choice. As the name itself suggests, petroleum, so it should be. Now this is what students do as a mistake in the examination. To relate the two, we mark it correct. But this is absolutely incorrect. Because this is not under the Ministry of Petroleum or Natural Gas. Instead, it is under the Department of Industry and Internal Trade, which talks about their promotion. So, the last statement, that is headquarter in Nagpur, is correct. From that, the answer to this question is going to be option A. The next one is with respect to the Ethics Committee. Now, from that, recently, one industrialist is said to have the access to the important work culture, important documents to be tabled, to be questioned in the parliament. And he has actually named one parliamentarian. Now, such kind of important activities actually leads to the fall of ethical practices in Indian parliamentary system. Now, that ethical question does not arise from easy understanding. Ethics is subjective. So, what are the basic rules that are available for the ethical conduct in Indian Parliament? How they are being judged? So, on the basis of that, we have framed a question, and surprisingly, UPSC in 2018 has asked a question on the similar parameter. In 2018, they asked a question with respect to the different committees, where the answer was Committee on Subordinate Legislation. On the basis of the same, we have framed a detailed question which will help you to understand the functioning of Ethics Committee in Indian Parliament. Now, Ethics Committee looks for the functioning of ethical standards, whether the member of Parliament are following the ethical standards or not. But the question is, do we have any code of ethics? That has to be answered. The question there is, consider the following statement regarding the Ethics Committee of Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Now, the first is that any person may make a complaint regarding unethical conduct of a member of the House. Now, the question says any. The moment we see such kind of extreme words, we often make it incorrect. But surprisingly, this is correct. Yes, any member means even you and me, we can raise the unethical concern by a member of the Indian Parliament. So that's correct. The second is, while the Ethics Committee of Rajya Sabha consists of 10 members, the same committee of Lok Sabha consists of not more than 15 members. For Rajya Sabha, it is fixed at 10, but for Lok Sabha, it is not. So it can be 15 and even less than that. This statement is also correct. The third statement is, the Ethics Committee of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha enforces the code of conduct of the members of the respective house. This statement is incorrect, because that committee is absent with respect to the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha is permanent, they have a permanent committee, but not true with Lok Sabha. So from that perspective, the answer is only 2. Now the question rises, what happens if somebody complains on the ethical ground? The final decision lies with the chair of the house, that is Speaker in Lok Sabha and chairperson or the chairman in Rajya Sabha. So they will take the final decision. In 2005, in one of the cash scam, almost 11 member of parliaments were expelled. Yes, the word was expelled. So from that discussion, it is clear that what ethics committee is, where it is, how it is formed, and how it functions. Let's move to the next one. The last one is with respect to the Dhordo. It's a village. As you can see in the image itself, some people are taking selfies with the Prime Minister. This village has been termed as the best village. By whom? The answer is World Tourism Organization, which functions under the United Nations. Now, in the previous questions, in the PYQs, we can easily see that in 2021, a UNICEF related question, which is a member or a body of UN, was asked, and it was linked to the cultural practices. The 21st February is declared to be the International Mother Language Day by UNICEF. No, it is not UNICEF, it is UNESCO. That's why the answer to this question was option B only. On the same ground, we have framed a question for today. The question says that Best Tourism Village is an initiative launched by the Ministry of Rural Development in cooperation with Ministry of Tourism. Seems to be the logic, but no, it's incorrect. It is World Tourism Organization. The second is that Dhordo is a village in the list of best tourism villages. Till here it is correct. But situated in the state of Rajasthan, which is incorrect, it is in the state of Gujarat, Kutch area. From that, the answer to this question is going to be option D only. Now, that was all with respect to the prelim examination. Let's now jump to the mains related topics. As we have talked about that we have two important mains related topics, we are going to start with the first major one, which is manual scavenging. The article says that Supreme Court, the highest court in India, has called, said, complained and ordered the government of India as well as the state government that why they are not acting on the fuller implementation of manual scavenging and its related laws. And because of the failure of the state governments as well as the central government, there is poor implementation, failure of fraternity, failure on the equality ground, as well as the failure on the dignity that government should have provided to the manual scavengers. As a result of that, there is a larger section of society who are backward, vulnerable, and because of that, they are still working in the sewage and are left to die. And this is not a death of dignity. They are dying trapped in the manholes. So what we should do is that they have talked about ending of that manual scavenging practices to the last man. Now, manual scavenging is important from the perspective of UPSC examination. So we have created this syllabus mapping so that you can identify that how the empire or how this entire topics should be distributed and how these topics should be covered from the perspective of GS paper 1 and GS paper 2. See, society, social justice are two important sections which are given in GS paper 1 and 2, and topics can be asked in either side. So manual scavenging can well be asked in your GS paper 1 with respect to the urbanization, their problems and the remedies. Now, drainage is an important issue, and cleaning of drainage is something where manual scavengers are involved. Social empowerment is the second one, as they belong to the vulnerable section. Social empowerment of this community is very much required. As far as GS paper 2 is concerned, so here we can divide this under the government policies and what kind of interventions they require, as well as the welfare schemes for vulnerable sections. The UPSC has not defined any specific vulnerable sections that are going to be covered. They're not saying scheduled tribes, scheduled caste, women, children, manual scavengers, PVTGs or any other. It's not given in the syllabus. It is us who have to decide that what kind of such initiatives or what kind of sections from the society should be covered up. In that regard, the welfare schemes of the vulnerable section would include the performances of the schemes created by the government, what are the mechanisms available for their improvement, what are the laws which are available for their betterment, and what are the institutions and bodies constituted for the protection of vulnerable section. Now, directly UPSC is not going to ask or may not ask in the future with respect to the manual scavenging. But what they have asked is with respect to the vulnerable section. As you can see, the PYQs of 2013 and 18 clearly proves that. Here, they're asking with respect to the central sponsored schemes, government intervention, how the laws have been working, how far we have been with respect to the functioning of these initiatives taken by the government. So that is how you should focus on these topics which are being asked by the UPSC. We are not going to delve into the factual information to a larger extent. Instead, for the mains examination, analytical, you can say, approach is required on these kind of topics. So today we are going to look into the details of manual scavenging from the scratch. For the first thing, we should understand what is manual scavenging. Now, in the layman language, you can easily think that manual scavenging means manual, which is by hand, scavenging means to collecting something, to covering up something. Now, that is not the definition you may easily write in the examination. That doesn't seem to be professional one. In the examination, we are going to quote a definition which is given by the International Labour Organization, which says manual scavenging includes mainly the disposal, yes, disposal of human excreta from dry latrines, public streets, as well as the maintenance and the sweeping of the septic tanks, sewers, and the gutters. Yes, this is the entire definition being used by International Labour Organization. So if you quote such kind of definitions while introducing your question, yes, you are going to get better marks. Now, after understanding what manual scavenging is, the question arises, who are they? Who are the manual scavengers? Well, they belong to the most vulnerable caste, scheduled caste, backwards. They are the poorest, they are the marginalized, as well as they are at the disadvantage. They are poor, that is the reason why they had to continue in this some kind of menial inhuman activities. They don't find easy opportunities elsewhere, so they had to continue with the same on ground. Why the issue? If they want to, they can continue. Why it is considered to be an issue? The answer is that there is loss of life due to toxic fumes or by drowning in the manhole. We are going to talk about the important data set which are given by the ministries. But once a person enters the manhole, they actually goes through the toxic air, poisonous water, and that is the reason why they sometimes end up in getting death or dying inside the manhole because of the suffocation. And due to this, it has remained a major concern in the society that somebody is losing life because of the poor work culture, lack of safety measures, and societal compulsion. The second is that excessive social ostracization. The people who are involved as a manual scavengers are not someone who is doing this by choice. Since their childhood, they have been taught this. Since their social setup says that they should do this, because society otherwise won't allow them to do anything else. So because of the social ostracization, they are forced into such activities. The third reason is not accepted in other professions or the job, especially in the private sector. If a person is involved as a manual scavenger in a, let's say, a particular village area, so everyone in the village area knows that he should not be involved in any particular or specific activity. Now, once that happens, do you think he's going to find a job elsewhere? Answer is no. So he, his child, his family members should continue to go by the same social order and caste hierarchy despite not liking that to be and despite having death potentiality. Then comes the failure of constitutional values and fundamental rights. Now, what does that mean? Article 14, equality of law or equality before law, rule of law, says that everyone should be treated equally, but they are not. Private citizens should be treated equally, government should treat everyone equally, but it is not happening. If they are forced to pick up the human excreta from the toilets or from the streets, it is not equality. The second is that it is Article 15 says that there should be no discrimination on the basis of caste, but it is completely the discrimination on the basis of caste. There is a certain caste sections of the society who are involved in the presentation, in execution of such kind of menial activities. Then Article 17 says that there should be the ban on the untouchability. Most of these people who are involved in the manual scavenging are still treated to be untouchables by the higher sections and the people of the society. The last one is that Article 21 says that everyone has a right to life. No matter what they are doing, they have the right to life. And if they are helping out the other people to clean the society, or if they are helping out the society to remain clean, they should also have the right to live with dignity. And all these articles prove that as they are fundamental rights. So everyone enjoys that. If they are the citizens of the country, they enjoy those rights. But that is not something that has been taking place in India, unfortunately. The next point is that no organized work culture is available. All these manual scavengers are either working in the unorganized sector, and even if they are working under any, let's say, any contractor, they don't have any organized work ethics. They don't have the insurance, they don't have safety measures, they don't have occupational safety, they don't have all the equipments which are required to remain safe. So as far as organized work culture is concerned, they lack it. So these are the important issues that says that this particular activity is inhuman across the sectors. Now the question is, what is the reality? On ground updates. So according to the Ministry of Social Justice, this is authentic data. You can quote this data anywhere. So according to the Ministry of Social Justice, the number of deaths, despite having legal restrictions, despite having complete ban, the number of deaths have increased from 68 in 2018 to 110 in 2019. Within a year, it was almost doubled. Within a year, despite having measures to protect that. As per the ministry, there are 58,000 manual scavengers who are working across the nation, which is completely inhuman. But 70% of the districts have reported end of this particular practice. Actually, this was recently revealed by a committee created under the parliament, and this was revealed to the Ministry of Social Justice that almost 70% of the district, which is over 500, have reported to end this practice. But the National Survey on Manual Scavengers proves that the highest number of manual scavengers are in UP or the Uttar Pradesh. Surprisingly, the state also has a very high scheduled caste population. It has also increased in the states like Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and surprisingly you will understand that all these states are either in central India or North India. Then if you think that all these are the better points, let's talk about the reality and let's burst the myth. Delhi, which claimed that it has ended the manual scavenging because their municipalities, their municipal corporations are using the electric machines or the machine technology to remove the excreta or to remove the toilets or to remove the sewerage, have reported 32 manual scavengers working on field. And it is just the number which is being provided by the government. The ground reality may be different. So this has proved that the social issue of manual scavenging is not going to end, or it is not going to end very soon, despite the claims, despite the legal parameters. Now, Supreme Court has said that it is against the fraternity, dignity of a person. It is showcasing the one of the worst form of human practices in the most advanced societies in the world. We are very advanced as far as modernity and the cultural practices are there and the diversities are there. So if such kind of dignity or dignified society lives where the people are forced, some sections of the people are forced, there is a failure by the government on multiple fronts. So why government fails? Why government is not in a position to do or to provide the end of this menial practice? The answer lies in the following. Why government has failed to curb the practice of this manual scavenging? First, governance issues. There are multiple of them. Number one, limited enforcement. How many times do government actually on ground enforces these laws? Most of the times, as we have discussed, these activities goes in the backhand, unorganized places, unorganized sector. Sometimes government doesn't even know that manual scavenging is taking place. Most of them takes place in the rural background, and even if in the urban background, we see the availability of enforcement is very poor. The second is that limited manpower to look forward for the enforcement of law. And these manpowers comes from the municipal bodies. They had to provide checks and balances. They have to provide for live tracking, monitoring of the implementation of certain laws which prohibit the manual scavenging, but we lack them. Low percentage of mechanized cleaning, just 5%, and even low. And that too limited to the very large cities like Delhi. We have thousands of cities, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and even rural areas. The collection of waste is first not available. If it is available, it is not completely being drained out using machines. That shows that we have a low percent of mechanization. If machines are not there, humans are going to cover up. And that's the reason why they had to do these jobs, because they are being offered money against these jobs. Then comes the non-filing of FIR. Even if a person dies, even if a person is seen or has been observed to practice manual scavenging, you will not find the other people to go and file FIR against the contractor. Because sometimes the people themselves offer to go for manual scavenging because they are poor. So number of FIRs are not being filed. And even if the FIR is being filed or filed in the nearest police station, the conviction rates are very small or very low. Why? Because contractors, manual scavengers, both remain poor. They are very low earning people. They don't want to go into the judicial system to waste their time because every day matters to them. So these are some of the reasons which were also actually highlighted by the Human Rights Commission, that why there is a low conviction rate. And most of the time it takes to the out of court settlement as well. Now these were the governance issues. What are the other issues? No social boycott. How many times do we see a social setup, the entire society standing against the manual scavenging? We don't find that, which is rare, that the entire society is standing up for these castes who are working in the manual scavenger or helping them out through social, political or economic parameters. No alternative source of income. Once they are involved in manual scavenging, the other people don't employ them for something else. So they don't have alternate source of income. That is the area where government is looking to provide them self-employment, so they can start something new. Social compulsion, age-old practice. Your father was doing this, so you should also do that. That is the criteria that has been used across India, especially North India. And because of this caste hierarchy, and because of this Varna system and caste and untouchability practices in the society, it is an age-old practice that they are not able to come out easily. Then, lack of mainstream social participation. Even if they want to come out, even if they are educated, even if they want to go and practice something in the society, they are not in a position to go in the similar manner because others are not ready to accept them. So they can't participate socially. Then comes the sanitation is a state subject and calls for the issues of federalism. If center provides money, it is lack. If states want to generate money for the mechanization, it is not up to the mark. As it is a state subject, so as far as municipalities are concerned, so state government should provide them the money, which they are not incapable of because their finances are not strong. Again, we go to the financial devolution problem, the problems of finance commission, the distribution of net tax proceeds. So all these parameters lead to the lack of implementation of the all schemes, even if they are created at the central level. Local bodies are not financially empowered. They don't have money. The first issue that ever raised by municipalities is that they don't have money to buy machines. So they are not able to replace the men with the machine. So how should we provide financial help to them? Then comes that weak labor union among the sanitation worker. Most of the sanitation workers, sanitation workers and manual scavengers are different. But if we take them through the perspective of the unions, their union is very, very weak. On the other hand, if you talk about sanitation workers, let's say the one who is cleaning the roads, the one who is involved in the cleaning of biomedical waste, or the one who is there to clean the daily routine garbage, their union and the union of the scavengers or the manual scavengers is quite different. It is not empowered. Again, it comes down to the social backwardness. The last one is that poor awareness of law among the manual scavengers. Even if the laws are there, government has not been able to popularize them to the last possible target. Most of these are actually unaware of the laws. They are unaware of the rights. They don't even know what fundamental rights do they enjoy. So together, all these 9 reasons have called for the failure of the government as well as the society to provide end to this manual scavenging, and that is one of the reason why Supreme Court has to come forward to say that it is a target against the dignity of a human being. Now, the question is, what has been done so far? We have been criticizing this activity. We have been criticizing that government has not been active enough to do something, but till now something would have been done. And that is the list of important laws that were passed by the government in this regard. The first was passed in 1993, which is Employment of Manual Scavengers Related Act, which says that it should be banned. Yes, the word is banned. To employ a person as a manual scavenger without the protective equipment. Why the law is saying that it can be used with protective equipments? Please understand that we say that machines should replace humans, but there are certain places where even machines can't work and human intervention is required. So there are the cases where sometimes a person had to enter the manhole to bring out the reality that why there are certain issues in the manhole or the drainage pattern. But if that person is entering naked, if that person is entering without any oxygen cylinder or without any clothing over it or the protective gear, that should be avoided. So the law says that there should be some ban, but this ban can be removed if protective equipments are being provided. And secondly, the construction of dry toilets should be rejected. So construction of dry toilets means, see, a person is forced to go for human excreta collection because the toilets are dry. There is lack of water. So if water reaches every household, this problem with itself is solved. The second is, the most important one, is the prohibition of the employment of manual scavenger and the Rehabilitation Act. See, it took government almost 2 decades to realize that not only the protection is required, but also their rehabilitation. See, all the issues that we have talked about in the previous slide is the one which talks about that they may leave the particular job, they may enter a new job, but still they are not being rehabilitated. They are not being accepted by the society. So government had to look into their rehabilitation as well. So that is the reason why this particular act was passed in 2013, which has 2 important articles which you can use during the answer writing as well. The first is Section 7, which puts a prohibition of any person, local authority also, as well as any agency to engage or employ person or people for hazardous cleaning of sewerage and septic tanks. See, it also prohibits the organizations. So municipal council cannot enter any sort of contract with these people. So they are being restricted. Now, once the government is not using them, they will be used by the private agencies. They will be used by the private contractor, which increases their harassment to the larger extent. Second point, which is Section 13, which says that the act provides for the rehabilitation of the person identifies as manual scavengers by municipalities, because this comes under the state control. So municipalities should take the lead in order to provide their rehabilitation. Have they done this? Yes, to a larger extent, they have been successful. The next one is the Protection of Civil Rights and their Act of 1955. Now, this is not with respect to the manual scavengers, it extends beyond that. It talks about the punishment to be given if there is a practice of untouchability, that is abolishing or against the Article 17 of the Fundamental Rights. So this goes beyond the manual scavenging. It targets the social practices. Next, the self-employment or the other activities, that is self-employment scheme for the rehabilitation of manual scavengers, which is one-time cash assistance of 40,000 will be provided to these people, plus a loan up to 15 lakh at concessional rate, and skill development. The question is why? Just in the previous slide, we have talked about that these people are not having adequate avenues to go for self-employment because of the social conditions. Now, with this particular scheme, they may get money, they can rehabilitate, they can start a new business, they can start a new life. Next, the action plan of 2021, which talks about the rehabilitation of the manual scavengers. It talks about self-employment programs, behavioral training of manual scavengers as well as the people around them. Health camps so that they don't fall ill. And the capital subsidy if they are taking specific loans. National Safai Karamchari Finance and Development Corporation provides different types of loans and non-loan based schemes to these people so that they can start a new life and a new career. Then the other schemes include construction of new toilets under Swachh Bharat mission, and most of these toilets actually have access to the water. So because they have access to the water, the excreta can easily be flushed out, and we don't require the availability of human being for that matter. The last one is National Action Plan for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem known as Namaste. It will provide almost 100 crore rupees for the mechanization and the availability of machines at the municipal level. This was announced in the last budget and it is going to continue till 2026. So it is going to provide, but the issue is that 100 crore seems to be very small amount when you talk about entire India. Now the issue there is that central government will not delve deeper into it because it's a matter of the state. So specific state government should look into to call for important money, fund and other in this regard. What should we do? Way forward. After going through the issues, what government has done, the challenges from the perspective of society, economy and polity, let's look into what we should do. First way forward is, see, let's talk practicality. Complete human interference cannot be there, right? It cannot be replaced. We require human interference. So, safety is the priority. Next, law must be enforced in letter and spirit, not on papers, especially by the municipalities. Local authorities must find resources to employ machines. And here resources means financial resources. So they should look into certain kind of taxation, let's say sanitation taxation, and that money can be raised to provide mechanized cleaning of the drainage system. Private sector can be brought into. We can call for municipal bonds to be used for raising funds. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan should make expansion on the sewerage network as a top priority. Let's take sewerage cleanage to be the top priority under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Rehabilitation, social rehabilitation of the manual scavengers. That is generation of awareness among the society where they are living in, bringing them into the mainstream. And the last one is the recommendation of the National Human Rights Commission in this regard. See, such kind of authentic recommendation can be made to gain more marks in the mains examination. The first recommendation of the NHRC says that there should be a periodic survey that should be conducted across the nation at least once in 3 years. This will help out to find out that how many people are actually working on ground and how many of them are subjected to or vulnerable to death. Collaboration with the credible NGOs. These NGOs can help in the social awareness. They can help in providing the employment generation to these people. They can also help in providing the awareness on the health parameters, safety parameters. Manual scavengers should not be treated like the other sanitary workers because here the death perception or the vulnerabilities are very high. So they should be treated separately. DM should be the main agency. See, as of now, what do we have? We have multiple agencies, state, municipalities, central level, NHRCs, SRCs or state human rights commissions. So they are working, NGOs are working. So instead of multiple levels of agencies who are working in their welfare or their rehabilitation or their protection, there should be one point solution, DMs, District Magistrate, as recommended by NHRC. Ensuring water availability. As we have talked about, so if Swachh Bharat Abhiyan brings the more water availability, it can easily be done. And the last one is State Human Rights Commission should take a proactive role in identifying these people and providing them the better rehabilitation. Now, we have talked about the basics, political aspects, issues, data set, way forward, government initiative in this regard. From that perspective, we come to a practice question. So the question says, this is an important practice question. You can pause the video later on and you can take a screenshot and you can solve this question at your own. The question says, despite the enactment of the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and the Rehabilitation Act 2013, manual scavenging continues to persist in India. Discuss 15 marker, that is 250 words. Now, if you are required to write such kind of question in the mains examination, why not practice right now? The introduction should be briefly about manual scavenging, so you can define that. In the body part, try to highlight some of the factors or the provisions of this act, although it is not compulsory. It depends on the word limit. Present the reasons for the persistence of manual scavenging. That is the demand of the question. So main body part should include what is and why it is persistent. The second part is way forward. In the conclusion, eradication of that manual scavenging requires behavioral change also. We have provided you the sample introduction in this regard. We have provided you the possible reasonings for the persistency of the manual scavenging, such as narrow deadlines or definitions, inadequate rehabilitation, policy issues, lack of legal responsibilities, issues of Swachh Bharat, and to your notice, you can combine all these points along with today's discussion in that regard. And see, this is just a sample answer. So you can write your answers at your own. Next comes the second part of the question is the way forward. So here we have listed down certain way forwards. You can here also discuss some of the way forwards that we have taken up in today's discussion and end up with a logical conclusion. And logical conclusion says it should be balanced enough. Just policy parameters are not going to function. Just legal parameters are not going to function. Technocratic exercise is not going to help. We required a behavioral change in the society as a whole and a commitment from the government in that regard. So that was the entire discussion on manual scavenging. This entire discussion will help you out to write a very good answer in the mains examination if this particular topic comes into the picture. Let's now move to the last article for the day on the second mains topic. This topic talks about the green finance. Whenever we see green, we mean ecosystem, diversity, biodiversity, plants, animals, earth, planet. So green here means something which talks about the protection of Mother Earth. Now, the author has highlighted certain challenges. Challenges of what? Challenges of green financing. Money which deals with financing of those projects which are working to provide a greener environment, adaptation, mitigation. What's the challenge? Well, this article was actually published in the Indian Express. So the challenge according to the author is to bring the private sector participation in the climate financing. All of you must have heard about the Paris climate deal and the provision of providing almost $100 billion annually to fight climate change. But most of this $100 billion, actually almost the entire amount should come from the public sector, that is the governments and the international agencies. Why not we have the role of private sector in that regard? That is the reason why this article was written by the author. The question requires whether to be pro-poverty or pro-planet. Which means, if we are going for the pro-poverty, you are talking about development. When we talk about development, we will go for the more or the extensive use of natural resources. This extensive use of natural resources which lead up towards the more exploitation, more emission, and more climate change. Most of the time, developing countries like India gave the argument that they should be pro-poverty, pro-development, sustainable development. On the other hand, the developed nations talks about pro-planet. Historically, they have been notorious. Historically, they have been very proactive as far as emissions are concerned. So the most of the CO2 that we see on the planet right now comes from the historical emissions as well, where America and European Union together have been the main culprits. So the debate is, should be pro-poverty or pro-planet? The second is that can public sector funding of 100 billion enough for us? The answer is no. Because as we are moving towards more and more economic empowerment and economic development. UNFCCC has itself proved that in the next 50 years and 100 years, the climate change is going to be very severe, which will impact the biodiversity, crop cultivation, economic activity, poverty, unemployment, health issues, both animals, plants, including humans. So in order to eradicate that, in order to be preventive on that matter, 100 billion per year is not going to be enough for us. So we require private intervention from there. But the next question is, can private sector be a magic wand? See, private sector works for profit orientation. And this profit orientation is nothing but a commercial activity. They work for profit, they work for the benefits. So whatever they bring for the benefit. So if we are looking for a challenge that how to bring private sector, we should be clear enough to understand that if we are bringing the private sector into the picture, what we are offering them. And is this private sector going to be the beneficiary in the long term or not? That is the debate that we are going to take about in this particular discussion. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, the syllabus mapping says in General Studies paper 3, conservation, environment, pollution and degradation is important, and this is part of your conservation, the climate financing. UPSC, to your notice, in 2014 has already asked a question with respect to the carbon credit and CDM, Clean Development Mechanism under UNFCCC. And that is the reason why this topic becomes more important now. Let's discuss and analyze this article, which is good for your GS paper 3. The key term which was mentioned in the article, whenever you go through the important articles, especially the editorials, do go through the important key terms which are mentioned over there, because these key terms are important to understand and can also be asked as MCQ for your prelim examination. The most important key term which was mentioned in the article is Just Energy Transition Partnership, JET, IP or SP. Now see, IP and SP. Here I and S stands for a particular nation, which is Indonesia and South Africa. It is an internation agreement signed by individual nations with the members of G7. Yes. So it is an agreement signed by a particular country on one side and the members of G7. Maybe all, maybe some. Purpose is to decarbonize the power sector. Yes, especially the coal power. So the two countries who have already volunteered to sign this agreement include South Africa, JETSP, and Indonesia, JETIP. This was 2022. So this specific topic was important for you to understand. Now let's talk about benefits of private financing. Okay, we want to include some private sector. What's wrong in that? The wrong thing is that they may come for the private or the profit orientation, but they will also come with profits and benefits. 1. Infinite funding opportunities. Private sector has a lot of profit. Talk about Apple computers. If they contribute a lot toward the climate change, they have enough money. Their money is sometimes larger than the GDPs. So these companies can come up. They have infinite money and they will fill up the gap which was not being filled up by the state agencies. Second, the provisions of latest technology and best international practices. They have the latest technology. Their research and development mechanism works more better, or you can say far better than the private agencies. So they will bring the best international practices. A company of US will come up in, let's say, projects in India, especially rural India, and they will bring the best of the available technology because they are not in dearth of money. Reduces burden on the public fundings. We require higher targets. So the gap will be filled by these companies. That will reduce the further burden on the public sector, government, and government can focus on other development areas. Easily meet climate funding targets. So that target of 100 billion can easily be met by them. So we will not find any particular year where we are going to miss this specific target. Better risk management, which means that these companies have better expertise managers who are expert in this specific field. And because of this specific fields, they actually functions with those programs, those technologies, which can benefit with the least amount of money. And this expertise is going to help in the longer term market driven solution. See, most of them work on this demand and supply mechanism. If there is a demand which is being taken up, see, every country has a demand, specifically the countries like India, where the population is rising drastically, exponentially. And India is a country which has a large demand for climate resilience, mitigation, adaptation. So that supply will be met by them. So they are going to work on the market principle. You demand it, we are going to supply it. And the last one is new and innovative funding products. We have GCF, Green Climate Fund. We have CDM. We have carbon credits. So all these kind of tools and new innovative tools can further be improved by this private participation. Now, this is not everything which is going to be the true. They have certain issues as well. The first could be short term. As these companies work only for the profit orientation, they may find it not feasible, not long term, and they may leave the certain criteria. So sustaining them, keeping them for the long term, it still remains the issue. Subjected to the market forces and the fluctuation, until and unless they find the equal amount of demand, they are not going to supply. So if they are not looking for the profitable or profit orientation, they are not looking for a good technology in a specific country, they are not going to work for it. Profit seeking. If it is a profitable, they are going to come. If it is not profitable, they will not enter this particular field. And the last one is can be biased to the origin of or nation of the origin. For example, if a country is coming from USA, it will only benefit to the countries or the nations which have good relationships with US, let's say India, not China. So in that regard, it may be biased to the country of origin. What should we do? Public sector undertakings, local governments, international agencies can come together and provide and act as a mediator or facilitator, and also the checks and balances. We are going to give you one good example: corporate social responsibility, where profits from the corporate sector is being used for the social responsibility. So we can have the similar criteria at the international stage, where we can have corporate environmental responsibility, where corporate sector can come together and provide a small fraction of their profits to be used for the environmental projects, mitigation, adaptation in the poor countries. Now the article talks about the green financing. Let's understand what green financing is all about. Green financing is what? Financial resources obtained locally, nationally, internationally from various sources such as public, private and alternative channels. So green financing is actually finance coming from different sources for the green purpose. Why? To bolster the actions to mitigate the greenhouse gas emission, let's say CO2, methane, and to adapt to the other adverse consequences of that time. So we require money for green purposes. That is all about green financing mentioned as a keyword of this article. The question: challenges in mobilizing the finance. Okay, we may have a finance, but what are the challenges in mobilizing, that is bringing from the generation of the finance to the final utilization? The first, inadequate funding. For the first time, we have been able to complete the $100 billion target. It has never been in the past, and there is no guarantee that it is going to be there in the future. So there is an inadequate funding because supply is not equal to demand as far as funding is concerned. Then comes the knowledge gap, especially between LDCs, that is low or least developed countries, and the advanced countries. And this knowledge gap is not with respect to the knowledge about the environment. This is about the knowledge to the financial markets. How many people in least developed countries are going to invest in green bonds, blue bonds? The fraction is very small. So this is the knowledge gap about the financial markets the people have, the agencies have. Low bankability of the project. Even if you involved a bank, in this particular criteria, that a bank is going to provide the funding to a project. Now, bank also works on the profit margins. If a bank is looking to the losses in a particular project, even after the environmental impact assessment, it is not going to go for a long term or a provision of providing the bank credit. The last one is that inefficient financing for the least developed countries as well as the small island developing countries. And surprisingly, these are the two groups of countries which are most vulnerable to the climate change. If the sea level rises because of the greenhouse gases, these small island countries are going to be submerged forever. So, and plus, they don't have good mechanism. So, who is going to look for them? That is the reason why state plus private is a solution being provided in this specific article. Now comes way forward. Enhance capital investment planning. Small investments, small savings, savings at micro stage, savings at a smaller city level, municipal savings. Cooperation between financial institutions with the Paris Agreement. So financial institution, let's say IMF is there, we have World Bank, we have ADB, we have BRICS Bank or New Development Bank. Standardized definition of the climate finance. One tool which collaborate everything. Financing should be as easy as saving. Why should we have complex financing instruments across the world? It should be fairly easy. A person can invest any day at a click of a button. Why we don't have that kind of mechanism? We need to develop that. And the last one is coordination among the members of UNFCCC, specifically the countries like US, who is historically the largest emitter, and the countries like India, who is emerging to be the largest contributor to the greenhouse gas. Now, if that happens, the smaller countries are going to benefit. Now, if we go through the entire discussion, we will find that private role is extremely important in bringing the money on the table. And based on that discussion, we have framed this question for you. Now, this is a practice question. We have not provided any sample answer to this. So, this is a practice question that you can use. The question says, do you agree to the fact that private finances is the last resort to reach the targets of climate financing? Analyze. 250 words, 15 markers. Try to solve this paper, try to solve this question on the basis of the discussion that we have conducted. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more updates and do subscribe to the channel. Thank you.